1987, the ghost of a beautiful girl, aka a Chinese ghost story, saw daylight. There's no reliable data available about budget and the box office numbers of the elaborate Tsui-Hark Hong Kong production. It was a big success in Asia and Hong Kong, but in China itself mainly through pirated copies. The official release was not until 2011. The fantasy movie won several awards, has quite rightly his cult status, and is one of the best modern wuxia films, Chinese wuxia. Besides the 5 feature films so far, there was also a Chinese ghost story, the Tsui-Hark animation, in 1997, with some elements of the original story. In this beautifully animated children's movie, a young debt collector falls in love with a ghost and gets to deal with a variety of ghost hunters who wants to destroy them. In 2003, the 40-part TV series Eternity, a Chinese ghost story, was also released. Thanks God, of course, sadly only in Asia. Oh, what a pity. A young debt collector falls in love with an attractive female ghost, which is forced by an evil tree demon to seduce men, resulting in their death. With the help of a Taoistic swordsman, he tries to free her soul by burying her ashes in holy ground in time. The first time I've read about Chinese ghost story was in a movie magazine, where somebody was praising part 3. That was 1991. Me and my friends often used it as an example for mysterious movies which for some reason never got a European release and that we will probably never be able to watch in our lifetime. When 1 year later the trailer for the first part aired on TV, even with a German dub, it was a kind of a big deal for us. To watch it, we went the first time to an art movie theater in a faraway city, as it seemed like the only place where the movie actually was shown. But what we didn't know at that time, only in Cantonese. A Chinese ghost story is the best ghost movie I know and creates the perfect balance between drama, romance, comedy, fantasy and action. Very well cast, fast-paced, with awesome practical effects and a fantastic film score. For reasons, Ling returns to the enchanted place where he lost his great love, Xiu Seng. Meanwhile, a demon in form of a high-ranked minister is spreading fear and terror, resulting in Ling's wrongfully arrest by the corrupt authorities. He manages to escape, gets picked up and confused for somebody else by comic relief rebels wannabes, and for reasons, one of the women looks exactly like Xiu Seng. The attempt to bring all 3 main characters back, even though the story is already told, seems forced. Part 2 is more elaborate, but still much weaker than its predecessor, and switches from my taste to too often between deadly seriousness and silly slapstick, but entertaining and thanks to the practical effects and the good cast, still recommendable. A young monk and his master spend for reasons the night in the Ghost Orchid Temple from part 1. While the old master faces the challenges of the demons, his students fall in love with an attractive female ghost, which is dominated by an evil tree demon, also similar to part 1. Even though part 3 allegedly takes place 100 years after part 1, and all ghosts/returning actors seem to have convenient amnesia, in my opinion it's simply a remake, which of course does not even come close to the original, but is still more entertaining than part 2. The 2011 remake under different direction has a completely new cast. This time a demon hunter falls in love with a beautiful ghost, deletes her memory and becomes her secret protector. The rest is the already known story, only this time with the demon hunter ex-lover as annoying fifth wheel whatsoever, obviously to pander to simpletons aka teenager aka the death of movies as an art form and the reason why only shallow garbage gets greenlit. In this case to activate woke-light feelings. Who the hell besides of the producers thought that telling for the 100th time the same story in worse, unnecessarily complicated and stuffed with tons of horrible fake-looking CGI is a good idea. Chinese ghost story Human Love is another CGI overloaded remake from 2020. Also known as The Enchanted Phantom, the visibly cheaper, I'm guessing TV, movie has only been released in China so far. There the lead is not a debt collector but a scholar, on his way to the capital to take the state officials' exams. This time there is no storming of hell, just a small visit, and no urn gets buried in sacred ground. Also the swordsman monk gets support from a colleague in the final. The movie is slightly better than its predecessor, but can't hold a candle to the original at any second, and is just another much weaker and therefore completely unnecessary version of the story. The genre wuxia is very popular in Chinese literature and movies and differs from ordinary martial arts. For example, the kind that can be seen in Bruce Lee films. These normally don't have fantastic elements and put the main focus on Chinese fist fighting like wushu or kung fu. Wuxia stories come usually with fantastic elements and are often about swordsmen, battle soldiers and so on, set in historical or pseudo-historical locations.
Ich bin mittendrin und geb mich allem hin, aber schaut man hinter die Kulissen, dann fängt es immer so an. Ich schlafe immer zu lang, krieg's nicht hin und fühl mich deshalb beschissen.
The most significant influence on this genre had certainly the three classics by wuxia pioneer King Hu. 1966, Come Drink With Me, 1967, Dragon Gate Inn, where for the first time ever wirework was used, and 1971, A Touch of Zen. Which gained international attention outside Asia, whose famous action scene in the bamboo forest was obviously the inspiration for countless movies like Tiger and Dragon, but also in different genres, for example Matrix. King Hu was never able to repeat this genre-defying success with his later movies again. A Touch of Zen is rightfully considered as his masterpiece. Apart from the Chinese Ghost Story trilogy 1987 to 1991, Ching Siu-Tung also directed the much weaker Swordsman trilogy 1990 to 1993, which he more or less took over from King Hu, who left the project during shooting of part 1 after a dispute with producer Tsui Hark. The Swordsman movies are about a mysterious scroll in which magic-like fighting techniques are described. The first two parts are kind of funny and entertaining, mainly because of the crazy and elaborate practical effects. Part 3 is much weaker, because from my point of view, with a completely unbelievable tacked-on love story.
Noch nie hat das geklappt, doch ich mag's nicht kapieren.
Ching Siu-Tung is also in many well-known movies like Shaolin Soccer from 2001 or Hero from 2002, action choreographer. And among others also in Patrick Tam's brilliant classic The Sword from 1980. Which at that time, together with A Touch of Zen, drew my attention to this genre. Duel to the Death from 1983 is his fast-paced, extremely exciting directional debut, which deals with the annual sword fighting between Japan and China, which usually takes place until one of the fighters dies. Similar to The Sword, the movie stands out with an intelligent and serious plot, a never-ending flood of crazy ideas and practical effects, and of course breathtaking, spectacular sword-fighting scenes. The Witch of Nepal from 1986 apparently only haunted Asia. Unfortunately, unfortunately, wasn't available to me.
Wovon sollen wir träumen, so wie wir sind, so wie wir sind, so wie wir sind. Woran können wir glauben, wo führt das hin? Was kommt und bleibt, so wie wir sind. Wir lassen uns treiben durch die Clubs der Stadt, durch fremde Hände und wir werden nicht satt. Wir wachen dann auf bei einer anderen Geliebten, von dem wir dachten, dass wir sie nie verlassen.
The thanks to the elixir of life, now back again, warrior of the Emperor, aka a Terra-Cotta warrior, tries in the elaborate and entertaining adventure action fantasy romance to protect the reincarnation of his deceased love in 1989. The adventure action comedy The Raid from 1991 is based on the popular Chinese manhwa, aka comic book Uncle Choi from the 1950s, and on historical events of the 1930s, when the Japanese occupied Manchuria and used the last Chinese emperor as their puppet leader for propaganda purposes, just like those nowadays in the Middle East installed by the US emperor. Of course, the US empire. The story of the partially unbearable silly fantasy action comedy The Mad Monk from 1993 follows a dragon fighter. Who tries to win a bet with the gods by changing without using magic the fate of a beggar, a prostitute and a rogue in 3 heaven days, which are, I don't know or care, earth days. And at the end fights an evil demon to prevent hell on earth, aka how it felt to me watching this crap with subtitles. The action comedy Wonder 7 from 1994 is basically about 7 vigilantes who save the world from evil. To take down an arm dealer, they use their motorcycles as well as their weapons and of course kung fu. The movie has an overcomplicated plot, okay action and barely funny gags. The laughable bad Indiana Jones copy Dr. Y in the scripture with no words from 1996 is about Mr. Zero Charisma Jet Li, which has here in all seriousness the name Action King. I guess Super Duper Man was too subtle. In the extremely funny and well-done gambler action comedy Conman in Tokyo from 2000, the king of gamblers helps his idol to take revenge on an old adversary. The movie is highly recommendable and a real insider tip. In 2002, a naked weapon showed up. A villain kidnaps 13-year-old girls from all over the world to train them as killers on a desert island. Which is why it makes absolutely sense that after 7 years of elaborate training, they have to kill each other to find the strongest. This nonsensical, boring crap has some nice action scenes, I guess, but zero entertainment value whatsoever. In the Snorfest Belly of the Beast from 2003, a father is looking for his kidnapped daughter. Steven Seagal, who has been avoiding good scripts since the 90s like The Devil Avoids Holy Water, provides, as usual, for a lot of involuntary laughs. 2008, an Empress and the Warriors killed more people through boredom than actual fighting. In the completely uninteresting, far-fetched romantic war drama, a princess has to decide between love and throw. The Sorcerer and the White Snake from 2011 should be better called The Ghostbusters in a Chinese ghost story. Also, this time, a 1000-year-old demon falls in love with a human, which is not tolerated by the ghost-busting monks, who store the captured ghosts in their monastery with a special magic device. The childish flick has a lot of horrible fake CGI crap, stupid talking animals like in Disney garbage, and Jet Li as a cock-blocking monk. The also completely uninteresting CGI fest Jade Dynasty from 2019 is an adaptation of the same named novel. It follows the story of a kind-hearted village boy who becomes, after a massacre, a student of the Qing. There he learns martial arts and has a complicated relationship with two beautiful girls.